Ladies and gentlemen, Minecraft Pocket Edition and Windows 10 Edition version 1.1 has just been released, featuring frankly an astounding amount of changes, additions and fixes. My name is slicedlime. I'm here to take you on a comprehensive tour of all the new things in this long-awaited version. This is going to be a fairly long video. There are a lot of things to cover, so I've split it up into several sections. You can see them at the top of the video, and if you want to skip ahead to one, just open up the description of the video and click one of the timestamps there to go directly to the section you want. With that said, let's get started with the gameplay features coming to Minecraft Pocket Edition that have previously been in Minecraft Java Edition. The first one we'll talk about is Shulker Boxes. There's now a use for all those shulker shells. You can use them to craft shulker boxes, which act like chests, but when you break them, they retain their contents. Shulker boxes can be put inside of other containers, but not inside of other shulker boxes. A whole bunch of other things have come to Minecraft Pocket Edition from the Exploration update. You can now find llamas in the world. They are a tameable mob. You can put chests on them and you can put carpet on them to get different designs in their looks. However, they act like pigs in that you can't ride them, they will only walk around randomly, and you can't even control them with a carrot on a stick. However, you can lead them, and when you lead tamed llamas around, they will also form caravans. As the Exploration update did for Minecraft Java Edition, this version introduces new types of villagers. They are Cartographer villagers, and they will sell you a new type of map. Those maps are Explorer maps. They show an outline of the terrain and a marker for a certain structure. You can also see yourself if you're outside of the map, and so you know roughly which direction you need to go to find this structure. There are two types of Explorer maps. One is the Ocean Explorer map, leading you to an ocean monument. The other one is a Woodland Explorer map, leading you to a completely new structure, the Woodland Mansion. The mansion is a big house in the forest, generated with many different types of possible rooms, and it is occupied by a new type of mob. Those mobs are Illagers, ill-willed villagers that have been cast out and are now living in the mansion. There are two types of them. They are Evokers and Vindicators. The Vindicators are a melee mob. They will attack you with their axes and do quite a lot of damage, so stay back. There are also Evokers that are a wizard type mob. They can attack you with fangs that spring out of the ground, but they also have another spell in their arsenal, a summoning spell summoning another new type of mob, the Vex. Vex is a flying mob that can attack you and can also phase through walls. If you stick around long enough, a Vex will eventually start taking damage of its own until it dies from that. The Illagers drop XP and emeralds when you kill them, but the Evokers also have a new unique drop. It is the Totem of Undying. This new item, when you hold it, will prevent a killing blow from actually killing you. Instead, you will get a number of effects like resistance and regeneration and end up at half a heart. Since you have to actually hold this Totem of Undying, another feature has made its way over from Minecraft Java Edition, the offhand slot. There's a new offhand slot in Pocket Edition, but it's a little bit different than its Java Edition counterpart. This one only works for the Totem of Undying and for arrows. Let's move on to more new things in the way of blocks and items. A number of changes that are coming to Minecraft Java Edition in the World of Colors update that is releasing tomorrow are also coming to Minecraft Pocket Edition in this version. They are 16 colors of a new type of block called concrete powder. You make concrete powder of a certain color by matching that type of dye with 4 blocks of sand and 4 blocks of gravel. This gives you 8 blocks of that type of concrete powder. Looks kind of grainy, just like sand, and will behave just like sand in that it is affected by gravity and falls. One thing that is very different from sand, however, is that whenever a concrete powder block touches water, it will transform into another new type of block, the concrete block. This is a hard block that can be broken with a pickaxe, and it of course also comes in all 16 colors. Do note that there is no way to get a concrete block to turn back into concrete powder, so if you want to keep it in powder form, don't get it wet. Another new thing is that the stained hardened clay blocks are changing names. They are now called Terracotta blocks, and the reason for that is that they have some new friends. If you throw a terracotta block into a furnace, then you get a glazed terracotta block. This block is available in all 16 colors, and all of them have wildly different, colorful patterns. Placing a glazed terracotta block is directional, so depending on how you place it, you can get a wide variety of different patterns. Another change in this version, beds can now have colors. You can create a colored bed by using 3 of the same color of wool, or you can take a white bed and dye it using a piece of dye. Beds also have another difference, you can jump on them and bounce, a little bit like slime blocks but not quite as effective. You bounce less high and you also take a little bit of damage still. The color palette has also been updated just like the World of Colors one for Java Edition. There are new colors for wool blocks, carpets, sheep to match. More features coming over from Java Edition. Iron and gold tools can now be smelted into iron nuggets and gold nuggets respectively. And renamed blocks and containers will now have their names changed in their menus and inventories. Let's talk about farming for a bit. Using bone meal on a fully grown crop doesn't consume the bone meal anymore. And farmland and crops are now destroyed if you go and jump on them. So tread carefully in your farmland. Sugarcane can now be planted on podzol blocks again. Cobweb blocks have also gotten a new recipe. You can convert 1 cobweb to 9 pieces of string. A change with cauldrons. If you leave a cauldron out in the rain, they will now fill with water rather than whatever the last potion was filled with. Elytra wings will now lose durability in survival multiplayer games, a bug fix there, and some changes to enchanting have happened as well. The Mending and Frostwalker enchantments have been brought over from Java Edition. These are treasure enchants that can only be found in villager trades or in treasure chests out in the world, rather than as enchants on an enchantment table. Putting Mending on a tool or piece of armor will lead to it having a chance of repairing itself whenever the player picks up an XP orb. Putting frostwalking on boots will lead to those boots freezing water as you walk onto that water. Note that this is a temporary freeze, and the frosted ice will later turn back into water again. Finally, the Smite enchantment now infects all undead mobs. Let's talk a little bit about changes to worlds. Each world now has a screenshot in the main menu so you could recognize them. The world generation is also changed a little bit, so seeds which contain pre-generated structures, like ocean monuments and igloos, may generate those structures in a different place now. And talking about igloos, if you have an igloo with a basement structure, a villager and a zombie villager will now appear inside of that. And cave spider spawners now generate more often in abandoned mineshafts. And while we're on the subject of cave spiders, let's move on to talking about mob changes. Cave spiders now attack with poison time based on the difficulty of the game. Higher difficulty, longer poison time. There are some fixes to mob behaviors in general. Mob spawning has been fixed, so spawn rates are now modified by the number of players in the game and depending on where they are located compared to other players. Mobs from the overworld would sometimes spawn inside of the end, and that is fixed in this version, and mobs can no longer spawn on top of slabs. There was also some bugs where you could hide away from mobs in different ways. Mobs will now see you through non-solid blocks, so you can't hide from creepers in sugarcanes anymore. And some different mobs will not attack you if you're standing in the corner of a fence. That is fixed in this version, so no hiding in the fences anymore. And their pathfinding has also improved, so they shouldn't get stuck and spin around on top of chests, on beds, or in the corners of fences anymore. Creepers had a bug where they could sometimes get stuck in the ignited state when a player hit them and then backed away. Blazes will now stop burning after they stop targeting a player, and they will also perform melee attacks with the right amount of damage and should no longer be able to one-hit kill players with a small fireball. Stick in another for a bit to magma cubes, they are no longer missing their jumping animations. More enemy updates, witches are no longer immune to poison damage, and shulkers will now get damaged and teleport out of fire and lava. In a final change to the enemies in the game, chicken jockeys will now walk with the speed of a baby zombie. Let's talk a little bit about friendlier creatures. Iron golems will no longer attack a player if they are killed by the iron golem. And villagers will no longer walk away while trading with you. And the trading window will no longer close immediately when you first attempt a trade. The zombie villager transformation rate would depend on difficulty, that is fixed in this version. Feeding a dog, a tamed wolf, will now restore the correct amount of health, depending on the type of meat you give them. And donkeys and mules can no longer be tempted with food unless they are tamed. A couple of fixes to horses. High jumping horses will no longer take damage when they jump and then land again on the same height. And if you have a horse that has entered a boat, you can now break that boat without hurting the horse. Mushrooms will now respawn on mushroom islands, and mobs will again drop cooked foods if killed by an arrow from a bow with a flame enchantment. Let's move on and talk a little bit about redstone and mechanisms. Redstone repeaters can now properly handle delay-based pulse generation, and hoppers were not pulling in items from above if all the slots were occupied. That is fixed now. And also splash potions and lingering potions can now be put into a brewing stand using a hopper. Items shot from droppers and dispensers used to have a pickup delay, so you couldn't pick them up immediately. That has been fixed, so you can now pick them up quickly. And also items can again be pushed under slabs that are set on the upper half of blocks. If you put armor items inside of a dispenser, you can now use that dispenser to equip those armor items onto mobs. A couple of piston related bugs have been fixed. Falling blocks would break and duplicate when falling onto pistons. That has been fixed in this version, and rails can no longer be duplicated using sticky pistons either. You'd also receive fall damage when you jumped on a slime block attached to a piston that was extending and retracting, and that is fixed in this version as well. Finally, several redstone components like buttons and levers can now be placed on top of fences and walls. This version also contains a bunch of fixes to controls. The vertical look speed has been dampened a bit when you're using a controller to play the game, and the navigation of the settings screen and the menus should now be simpler. The X button on the controller can now also be used to clear the hotbar inside of the creative inventory screen, and the controller input when selecting items from the creative inventory screen has been improved. If you're playing the Windows 10 edition on a mouse and keyboard, the sensitivity should be correct now, so no more crazy mouse problems. Let's talk a little bit about some random changes to the game too. There's now a setting to toggle smooth lighting on and off, and a number of new animations have been added into the game. There's a new sleeping animation that slowly lowers you down into a nice and cozy bed. The eating animation can now be seen in third person, and if you're playing multiplayer, the block breaking animation and the particles now display correctly. If you throw an item, it no longer carries your momentum when you throw the item. There is also a bug where players would sometimes spawn on the bedrock roof of the Nether. That is fixed now, so you should never end up stranded on top of the Nether anymore. If you're flying and you disconnect from a world or realm, when you rejoin you will still be flying now. And a change that is also coming to the Minecraft PC edition tomorrow, exiting the crafting grid will not drop items on the ground anymore, unless your inventory is full. There's also been a fix to fire ticks, so it will properly spread and extinguish in an appropriate amount of time now. This version also contains a number of new sounds in the game. The Ender Dragon's Ender Charge attack now has the correct sound. Horses make a sound when they jump. The Wither will now play a sound during a spawning animation. When an Elder Guardian inflicts mining fatigue onto a player, you will now hear a sound. Redstone torches now have a sound when they burn out. Zombie villagers now have the unique sound that they do in the Java edition. And all the mobs will now play footstep sounds, so you'll be able to hear them trying to sneak up on you. Also, a bug fix related to sounds. If you've had a problem where you had no sounds at all when you joined an Xbox Live game, then that bug is fixed in this version. This version also brings big news to the Minecraft store. It introduces the Minecraft Marketplace. The Marketplace is a new place to buy content that is produced not only by Mojang and Microsoft, but also by members of the community, and the money you pay for this will be split, with parts of it going to the creator of the content. This marketplace will feature many different types of contents, including skin packs and maps. Speaking of maps, there's a number of changes to map making and commands in this version as well. There is now adventure mode in the game. You can switch a player into adventure mode using the /game mode command, and it functions very much like adventure mode does in the Java edition. With this also comes a few supported data fields for the /replace item command. They are can place on and can destroy, to create items that have specific uses in adventure mode. There are a number of new game rules in this version as well. They are do fire tick, do mob spawning, do tile drops, mob griefing, do entity drops, keep inventory, do mob loot, and do daylight cycle. In terms of entering commands, there is a new bug fix in the text entry. If you move the text cursor to the middle of the row and then hit enter, you used to lose all the text on the right hand side of the cursor. That is fixed in this version. You can now use whisper-like commands like /tell to send a message to a dead player. /locate command finds more structures in this version. The clear command will now remove equipped armor from a player as well as the rest of the inventory. And there's a bug fix to the fill command that fixes skulls being invisible. The time query command now returns a more descriptive message than it did before. And the replace item command has had a number of bug fixes done to it, so it now properly checks against invalid parameters and will give the right output message. Of course, with the new offhand slot, you can also use the replace item command to replace the item in that offhand slot. Using the /give command with a damage value will now give the item the right durability value from that. Couple of fixes to command running in general. Executing an unfinished command now updates the chat with a message saying invalid command syntax, and command autocomplete now works in multiplayer games properly. Finally, a change that might be useful: spawn eggs renamed in an anvil will now respect the special name when spawning a mob. Finally, this version contains a number of stability fixes as well. Many different crashes have been fixed, and many different graphical glitches have also been fixed. Notably, there was a problem where the game would refuse to start on certain Android devices, and that is fixed in this version. And that brings us to the end of this very long list of changes for Minecraft Pocket Edition and Windows 10 Edition 1.1. This version releases today, but it takes a different amount of time for it to show up in different platforms. If you can't see the update in the App Store on your platform, just wait a little longer and check again. It will show up shortly. I hope you enjoyed this new version of Minecraft Pocket Edition and Windows 10 Edition, and I hope you've enjoyed this video as well. If you did, please help me out in return and leave a like, and if you want to stay up to date with all of the Minecraft news, subscribe to my channel where I post an update video for every new version or snapshot of Minecraft. My name is slicedlime, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in another video.